A desperate cry pierced the night as Abigail Knight clutched her 3-month-old daughter to her chest, rain pelting down mercilessly upon them both. The little church in Silver Creek, Wyoming offered minimal shelter as she crouched behind it, shivering in the spring of 1876. Her tattered dress clung to her rail-thin frame, and tears mingled with raindrops on her face. She'd been running for 2 days, ever since her husband's creditors had come calling men who saw more value in taking her as payment than the meager possessions they'd already seized. "Hush now, Emma," she whispered, rocking the whimpering infant against her. "We're going to be all right," but the words rang hollow even to her own ears. At 22, Abigail had already endured more heartbreak than most faced in a lifetime. Her husband James had gambled away everything they owned before typhoid took him just weeks after Emma's birth. Now she was alone, hungry and terrified. The baby's cries grew louder, echoing through the stormy night. Abigail tried desperately to quiet her, knowing any attention might lead those men straight to them. She closed her eyes, praying for a miracle. "Hello, is someone there?" the deep voice startled her. Abigail froze, holding her breath as footsteps approached. A tall silhouette rounded the corner of the church, and she pressed herself further against the wall, hoping the shadows would conceal them. "I hear a baby," the voice said, gentler now. "You don't need to be afraid." A lantern lifted, illuminating the face of a man in his early 30s. His features were weathered by sun and wind, but his eyes held a kindness that made Abigail hesitate before fleeing. Behind him, 2 small faces peered from beneath wide-brimmed hats, a boy of perhaps 8 and a girl who couldn't be more than 6. "Pa, there's a lady," the little girl exclaimed, pointing directly at Abigail. The man crouched down, keeping a respectful distance. "Madam, you and your little one shouldn't be out in this storm. I'm Preston Nichols. These are my children, Benjamin and Sarah." Abigail clutched Emma tighter. "Please, I don't want any trouble." "No trouble," Preston assured her, his voice steady and calm. "My ranch is just 2 miles from town. We've got a warm fire, dry clothes, and food to spare." He glanced at the baby, concern evident in his expression. "That little one needs to get dry and warm." "Pa takes care of people," the boy Benjamin offered. "He took care of us after Ma died." Preston shot his son a gentle look before turning back to Abigail. "Come home with us, just for tonight, if that's all you're comfortable with." Abigail hesitated, weighing her limited options. Emma's skin felt cool to the touch, and the thought of spending the night in the rain could mean death for her child. With trembling hands, she nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. Preston smiled, removing his coat and draping it carefully over her shoulders. The unexpected kindness nearly broke her, and she fought back fresh tears. "I've got a wagon just up the road," Preston said. "Can you walk that far?" Abigail nodded, rising shakily to her feet. Her legs had nearly gone numb from crouching for so long, and she swayed slightly. Without a word, Preston steadied her with a gentle hand on her elbow, respectful even in his assistance. The children led the way, splashing through puddles with the carefree abandon only youth could manage in such conditions. Preston walked beside Abigail, his lantern illuminating their path, occasionally glancing her way with unspoken questions in his eyes. True to his word, a wagon waited, the horse pawing restlessly at the muddy ground. Preston helped Abigail up first, then lifted his children before taking the reins. As they pulled away from town, Abigail cast one last fearful glance behind them, half expecting to see her pursuers. "No one's following," Preston said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. "You're safe now." The journey to the ranch passed in relative silence, broken only by occasional comments from the children and the rhythmic sound of hooves against the wet earth. Emma had finally quieted, lulled to sleep by the gentle rocking of the wagon. When they crested a hill, Preston pointed ahead. "There it is, nothing fancy, but it's home." In the distance, golden light spilled from the windows of a modest but well-maintained ranch house. A large barn stood nearby, along with several corrals and smaller outbuildings. It was more than Abigail had dared hope for a real home, not just shelter. As they approached, an older woman appeared in the doorway, concern etched on her kind face. "Preston Nichols, what in heaven's name kept you so long? The children should have been—" She stopped short upon seeing Abigail. "Oh my. Martha, this is." Preston paused, realizing he hadn't asked her name. "Abigail Knight," she supplied softly, "and this is Emma." Martha's expression softened immediately. "Well, Miss Knight, let's get you and that baby inside by the fire. You look half frozen." Preston helped Abigail down from the wagon while Martha ushered the children inside. As Abigail's feet touched the ground, her legs buckled beneath her. Preston caught her before she could fall, his strong arms lifting her effortlessly. "I've got you," he said, his voice low and reassuring as he carried her toward the house. "You're safe here." For the first time in days, Abigail allowed herself to believe it might be true. The interior of the ranch house was warm and inviting, with a large stone fireplace dominating the main room. Simple but sturdy furniture filled the space, and the smell of something delicious wafted from the kitchen. "Martha is our housekeeper," Preston explained as he set Abigail gently in a chair by the fire. "Has been since my wife Caroline passed 3 years ago. Don't know what we'd do without her." Martha bustled in with a stack of towels and clothes. "These might be a bit large, but they're clean and dry. I'll heat some water for a bath for you and the little one." "Thank you," Abigail said, overwhelmed by their kindness. "I don't know how to repay you." Preston waved away her concerns. "No need, anyone would do the same." But Abigail knew better. In her experience, kindness like this was rare indeed. While Martha prepared the bath, Preston disappeared to tend to the horse and wagon. Sarah, the little girl, approached Abigail cautiously, her curious eyes fixed on the baby. "Is she sleeping?" she whispered. Abigail nodded, carefully adjusting the blanket to reveal Emma's peaceful face. "Her name is Emma. She's 3 months old." Sarah beamed. "She's pretty. Can I touch her?" "Gently," Abigail said, guiding Sarah's small finger to Emma's tiny hand. The baby reflexively gripped it in her sleep, causing Sarah to giggle in delight. "I don't remember having a ma," Sarah confided, "but Pa says she was real pretty and kind like an angel." The innocent comment pierced Abigail's heart. These children had lost their mother, just as she had feared Emma might lose her if those men had caught up to them. Martha returned, announcing the bath was ready. She helped Abigail to a small room off the kitchen where a copper tub steamed invitingly. For the first time in days, Abigail felt the tension in her shoulders begin to ease. After bathing both herself and Emma, Abigail dressed in the borrowed clothes, a simple dress that had clearly belonged to Preston's late wife. The thought made her uneasy, but Martha assured her that Caroline would have wanted them put to good use. When they returned to the main room, Preston had come back inside and was reading to his children by the fire. He looked up as Abigail entered, something unreadable flashing in his eyes. "Feel better?" he asked. "Much, thank you." Abigail sat in the chair Martha indicated, Emma now clean and content in her arms. Martha served a simple but hearty supper of stew and fresh bread. Abigail hadn't realized how hungry she was until the first bite touched her lips. She ate carefully, mindful of her manners despite her hunger. After the meal, as Martha cleared the dishes, Preston finally broached the subject Abigail had been dreading. "Miss Knight, I won't pry into your business, but I need to know if there's trouble following you." "I've got my children to consider." Abigail swallowed hard. "There are men looking for me in town. My late husband owed them money and they—" She glanced at the children and chose her words carefully. "They decided I was suitable payment." Preston's jaw tightened, anger flashing in his eyes. "I see. I wouldn't have brought this to your door if I'd had anywhere else to go," Abigail said quickly. "We'll leave at first light." "No," Preston said firmly. "That won't be necessary. You can stay as long as you need to. But this is a big county, Miss Knight. And I've got friends in the right places." His tone left no room for argument. "Now, Martha's prepared the spare room for you and your daughter. Why don't you get some rest?" That night, lying in a real bed for the first time in days, Abigail stared at the ceiling, listening to the rain on the roof and Emma's soft breathing. Part of her warned against becoming comfortable, against trusting this unexpected kindness. But exhaustion soon won out, and she drifted into the deepest sleep she'd had in months. Morning came with golden sunlight streaming through the curtains. For a moment, Abigail was disoriented until the events of the previous night came rushing back. Emma was already awake, cooing softly beside her. The smell of coffee and bacon drew them downstairs, where they found the household already bustling with activity. Preston was nowhere to be seen, but Martha was cooking while the children set the table. "Good morning," Martha greeted. Preston's out with the hands, checking the south pasture. Spring calving keeps them busy. I should help, Abigail said, setting Emma on a blanket Martha had laid out. I can cook or clean, earn my keep, Martha smiled. No need to rush, eat first, then we'll see. Over breakfast, Abigail learned more about the ranch. Preston had inherited it from his father and built it into a modest success. They ran cattle mainly with some horses. The operation wasn't huge, but it was profitable enough to support the family and several ranch hands. Pa's the best rancher in the county, Benjamin declared proudly. Everyone says so, Sarah nodded in agreement. And the best Pa, too. After breakfast, despite Martha's protests, Abigail insisted on helping with chores. She washed dishes, helped with laundry, and even assisted in preparing lunch for the ranch hands. The physical work felt good after days of fear and running. Preston returned midday, his shirt dusty from the morning's work. He paused in the doorway, watching as Abigail hung laundry on the line, Emma secured to her chest with a makeshift sling. You don't have to work so hard, he said, approaching. You're a guest here. Abigail turned, shielding her eyes from the sun. I want to earn my keep, Mr. Nichols. I've never been one to take charity. A smile tugged at his lips. Preston, please, and it's not charity among friends. Are we friends then? Abigail asked, surprised by her own boldness. I'd like to think we could be. His gaze was steady, honest in a way that both comforted and unsettled her. How is the little one today? Thriving, thanks to your kindness. Abigail adjusted Emma in her sling. She's never known such comfort. Preston's expression grew serious. About what you told me last night. I sent one of my men to town this morning. There are indeed men asking questions about a young woman and baby. 3 of them, not the kind you'd want to meet on a dark road. Abigail's heart sank. Then I've put you all in danger. We should leave. Preston shook his head firmly. This is my land, Miss Knight. No one comes here making threats or demands. His hand rested briefly on the revolver at his hip. Besides, Sheriff Miller is an old friend. I've sent word to him about these men and their collection methods. You did that for us? Abigail asked, tears threatening. Preston's gaze softened. Like I said, friends. The days that followed fell into a comfortable routine. Abigail helped Martha with household tasks while keeping an eye on Emma and often the Nichols children as well. Preston worked from sunup to sundown, managing the ranch with quiet competence that Abigail found herself admiring more each day. In the evenings, after the children were in bed, Preston and Abigail often sat on the porch, talking softly as the prairie stretched endlessly before them. She learned about his life, how he'd met Caroline when they were both barely 20, how they'd built this ranch together, and how devastated he'd been when childbed fever took her after Sarah's birth. In turn, Abigail shared pieces of her own story. Her childhood in St. Louis, meeting James when she was 19, their hasty wedding when her parents disapproved, and their move west with dreams that quickly soured as James's gambling debts mounted. I should have seen it, she admitted one evening, a week into her stay. The signs were all there. Preston shook his head. Love makes us blind sometimes, no shame in that. Is that what happened with you and Caroline? She asked gently. A sad smile crossed his face. No, we were lucky. What we had was real and true right until the end. He looked at her, his expression sincere. You deserve that too, Abigail. Real love, not what James gave you. His words stayed with her long after they'd said goodnight and she'd retired to her room. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future beyond mere survival, a life where she and Emma were safe, maybe even happy. 2 weeks after her arrival, Abigail was in the kitchen kneading bread dough when hoofbeats sounded in the yard. Preston had ridden out at dawn with Benjamin to check the herd, and they weren't expected back until evening. Martha peered out the window, her expression suddenly taut. 3 riders. Men I don't recognize. Ice flooded Abigail's veins. It's them, the men from town. She wiped her hands on her apron, her mind racing. Where's Emma? Napping in the cradle in your room, Martha said, already moving. Sarah's with her, I'll get them. Abigail grabbed the shotgun Preston kept by the door. No, I will. You stay here. If they ask, you've never seen me. Martha's face hardened. Nonsense. This is Preston's home and you're under his protection. I'll not lie to save my own skin. She took the shotgun from Abigail's hands. Go to Emma and Sarah. Lock the door. I'll handle this. Before Abigail could protest, a knock sounded at the door. Martha squared her shoulders and moved to answer it, the shotgun held firmly in her hands. Abigail slipped down the hallway to her room, where she found Sarah sitting beside Emma's cradle, singing softly. The little girl looked up, her eyes widening at Abigail's expression. "Is something wrong?" she whispered. "Some men are here," Abigail explained, trying to keep her voice steady. "We need to be very quiet, all right?" Sarah nodded solemnly. "Like when we play hide and seek with Pa, exactly like that." Abigail lifted Emma from the cradle, grateful that the baby remained asleep. She strained to hear the conversation at the front door. "No women here except me," Martha was saying, her voice carrying clearly. "Mr. Nichols is a widower with 2 children." "That's so," a man's voice drawled. "Mind if we look around then, just to be sure?" "I mind very much," Martha replied firmly. "Mr. Nichols doesn't take kindly to strangers entering his home uninvited. You're welcome to wait for his return if you've business with him." There was a pause, followed by what sounded like boots on the porch steps. "Maybe we'll do that. When's he due back?" Hard to say. Ranching isn't work bound by a clock. The conversation continued, but a new sound caught Abigail's attention: riders approaching fast from the east, where Preston and Benjamin had headed at dawn. Relief washed over her. Minutes later, she heard Preston's voice, hard with authority. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" The ensuing conversation was too muffled to make out clearly, but the tone was unmistakably tense. Abigail held her breath, clutching Emma to her chest while keeping a protective arm around Sarah. Finally, after what seemed an eternity, footsteps approached the bedroom door, followed by Preston's voice. "Abigail, it's safe now." She unlocked the door with trembling hands. Preston stood there, his expression grim but triumphant. Behind him, Benjamin peered curiously. "They're gone," Preston assured her. "Sheriff Miller arrived right behind us. Seems those men are wanted in 2 counties for extortion and worse. They won't be bothering you again." Relief made Abigail's knees weak. "Thank you, I don't know how I'll ever repay you for everything you've done." Something shifted in Preston's eyes. "You don't owe me anything, Abigail. Having you and Emma here, well, it's brought life back to this place in a way I didn't realize we were missing." That evening, after a celebratory dinner where even Martha seemed more relaxed than usual, Preston asked Abigail to join him for a walk. The sun was setting, painting the prairie in shades of gold and crimson. "It's beautiful here," Abigail said as they strolled toward a small rise overlooking the ranch. "I never thought I'd feel safe again, but here I do." Preston nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I felt the same after Caroline died, like safety was something that happened to other people." He turned to face her. "Abigail, I know you've only been here a few weeks, but I wanted to ask, would you consider staying, not as our guest, but as part of this ranch, this family?" Abigail's heart stuttered. "What exactly are you asking, Preston?" "I'm not proposing marriage," he clarified quickly. "That would be too soon for both of us, but I am offering you a home, a place where you and Emma belong. The children adore you, Martha's happier with another woman in the house, and I—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I've come to care for you, Abigail, more than I expected to care for anyone again." Tears welled in her eyes. "I care for you too, and your children, this place. It feels like the home I've always wanted." "Then stay," he said simply. "Stay and see where this leads us." No pressure, no expectations, just 2 people finding their way forward together. "Yes," Abigail whispered, a smile breaking through her tears. "Yes, we'll stay." The summer passed in a blur of long, sun-drenched days. Abigail's confidence grew as she took on more responsibilities around the ranch. She learned to ride again, a skill long forgotten from her childhood, and often accompanied Preston on short rides to check the herds. Emma thrived, growing plump and happy under the loving attention of not just her mother, but the entire household. Benjamin and Sarah doted on her like the sister they'd never had, taking turns entertaining her and proudly showing her off to the ranch hands. As for Preston and Abigail, their relationship deepened gradually, built on mutual respect and growing affection. Their evening talks on the porch became a cherished ritual, a time when they could share thoughts and dreams under the vast Wyoming sky. By August, Preston had begun holding Abigail's hand during these conversations. By September, those talks occasionally ended with a gentle kiss goodnight. Neither rushed, both aware of the wounds they still carried from their pasts. One crisp October evening, as the first hints of winter touched the air, Preston found Abigail in the barn, checking on a new foal. Emma, now 8 months old, was strapped to her back, peering curiously at the horses. "There you are," Preston said, his face alight with something Abigail couldn't quite name. "I've been looking for you. Is something wrong?" she asked, noting his unusual energy. "Not wrong, right, very right." He took her hand, leading her to a hay bale where they could sit. "I've been thinking about our arrangement." Abigail's heart clenched. "Oh, it's not enough anymore," he said, his eyes serious. "Having you here as, well, whatever we've been to each other, friend, companion, confidante." "I see," Abigail said quietly, preparing herself for disappointment. Perhaps he'd decided this experiment had run its course. To her surprise, Preston dropped to one knee before her, taking both her hands in his. "Abigail Knight, I love you. I've loved you since that night you looked up at me from behind the church, fierce as a mother bear protecting her cub. I love the way you care for Emma and my children as if they were all your own. I love your strength, your kindness, your determination." Tears spilled down Abigail's cheeks as Preston continued. "I know we agreed to take things slowly, and I've tried. Lord knows I've tried. But I don't want to waste another day pretending we're just friends finding our way. I want to build a life with you, raise our children together, grow old on this land together." From his pocket, he withdrew a simple gold ring. "This was my mother's. I'd be honored if you'd wear it as my wife." Abigail was speechless for a moment, overwhelmed by joy. Emma chose that moment to let out a happy squeal from her perch on Abigail's back, making them both laugh. "I think Emma approves," Abigail said, wiping away tears. "And so do I. Yes, Preston Nichols, I will marry you." Preston slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms, careful not to squish Emma between them. Their kiss was tender yet passionate, a promise of all that was to come. The wedding took place 2 weeks later, a simple ceremony in the same church Abigail had hidden behind that rainy night in spring. Sheriff Miller gave the bride away, Martha served as matron of honor, and Benjamin proudly stood as his father's best man while Sarah scattered wildflower petals along the aisle. Emma balanced on her hip. The entire county turned out to celebrate, the church and later the ranch house filled with more people than Abigail had ever expected to call friends. As she danced with her new husband under stars that seemed to shine especially bright that night, Abigail marveled at how completely her life had transformed in just 6 months. "Happy," Preston murmured against her ear as they swayed to the fiddle music. "Beyond words," she replied, resting her head on his chest. "Thank you for finding us that night." "Thank you for trusting me enough to come home with us," he countered. "Best decision I ever made, offering shelter to the beautiful woman behind the church." "Best decision I ever made was accepting," Abigail said, lifting her face for his kiss. As winter settled over the ranch, the Nichols family, now officially including Abigail and Emma, grew closer than ever. Christmas was celebrated with more joy than the house had seen in years. With handmade gifts and carols around the piano, Preston had surprised Abigail with as a wedding present. By spring, as the land awakened once more, Abigail had news of her own to share. On the anniversary of the night they'd met, she and Preston sat on the porch, watching the children play in the yard. Emma, now walking unsteadily, toddled after Benjamin and Sarah, shrieking with laughter when they let her catch them. "It's hard to believe it's been a year," Preston said, his arm comfortably around Abigail's shoulders. "So much has changed." "And more changes to come," Abigail said with a smile, guiding his hand to rest on her still flat stomach. "By Christmas, there will be another Nichols in this house." Preston's eyes widened, then filled with tears of joy. He pulled her close, his kiss conveying everything words couldn't. "I love you, Abigail Nichols," he whispered against her lips. "You and our growing family are the greatest blessings of my life." As twilight descended over the ranch, painting the sky in the same colors as the night they'd confessed their feelings, Abigail reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From desperate fear behind a church to profound love on a thriving ranch, her path had been neither straight nor easy. But looking at her husband and their 3 children, soon to be 4, she knew with absolute certainty that every step had led exactly where she was meant to be. "Come inside," Preston said eventually, rising and offering her his hand. "It's getting chilly." Abigail took his hand, feeling the strength and tenderness in his grip. Yes, she said, the word carrying all the meaning of the past year. Let's go home. And together, they walked into the warm light of the house, closing the door on the wild prairie night, secure in the knowledge that whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them together, a family forged not by blood alone, but by choice, circumstance, and boundless love.